Hello readers and scholars. Welcome to my channel. This is a short story, unbelievable story of Kikola Lambu, a poor old man from Ukambani walking to the market to sell his only cow during the Great Hunger of 1992. But along the dusty road, he stumbled upon a pot of steaming rice, fried chicken, and a bundle of cash. Everyone knew what that meant. Jinn money. Evil money. You wouldn't believe what he did next to save his life. I invite you to lend me your ears and eyes as I narrate the story as the villagers once told me. The wind whispered low through the roof, its sound almost like a mournful lullaby. Inside the hut, Kikola Lambu sat up from the edge of his string-tied bed. The mattress had long lost its strength, and the sisal lining beneath creaked and cried. He rubbed his eyes slowly, careful not to wake his big family, then reached beneath the bed for the old lantern. Its metal was rusted, the handle loose, but it still held enough kerosene to push back the dark. He struck a match and lit the wick. A faint orange glow filled the room, chasing away shadows but revealing the truth. Kikola already knew too well. Poverty lived with them, breathed with them, and mocked them every day. A rough cough escaped his throat. He turned and gently reached out a hand. He patted her once, twice. "Mueni," he whispered. His wife stirred. A deep sigh escaped her lips before she turned and faced him, her eyes half-lidded in the dim light. "Mamanduku," he said, voice low but firm. "Boil me some tea. I must leave for the market before the sun wakes." She sat up slowly, her frame thin beneath the worn lesso she'd wrapped around her shoulders. Her cheekbones looked sharper under the lantern light, the kind of sharp that hunger carves over time. "Tea?" she asked, her voice hoarse. He nodded. "I know no sugar in this house. Just make me something to drink and confuse snakes in my stomach." From the corner of the room, a small sound cut through the silence. The baby stirred. Nduku, their last-born. Her tiny whimper grew louder, turning into a soft, hungry cry. "Hush now," she said, moving to her and scooping her gently. "I know, my child," she cooed. "Hunger." Her words trailed off. Nduku wasn't crying for comfort. She was crying because her stomach was empty, the same way it had been the day before, and the day before that. Her mother rocked her slowly, trying to silence what she could not solve. Kikola stood, pulling on his patched-up trousers and the brown coat he wore every market day. It used to belong to his father, once a proud herder. Now it smelled of smoke, sweat, and struggle. He looked around the room, a three-legged stool, an old cooking pot, a worn-out gourd for milk that had been empty for weeks. In the far corner, tied to a wooden peg, was the rope he would use to lead the cow to the market, his only cow. She was small and lean now, her ribs showing more than her milk. But she was all they had left. He hated himself for what he had to do. Selling her felt like cutting the last thread connecting him to a life he once knew. A life where granaries had food, children laughed without coughing, and sugar wasn't a luxury item only spoken about in factories. "Winnie," he said again, more gently. "It's getting late." She nodded and set the kettle over the 3 stones in the corner, tossing in the last handful of firewood. The crackle of the flame was the only thing alive in that room. "Where will you sell it?" she asked as she worked, eyes never leaving the fire. "Kamwili Market? I hear prices are better there." "It's far." "I'll walk." She didn't respond. What was there to say? There were no choices, not anymore. He sat back on the stool, the lantern flickering beside him. Outside, the crickets sang the only song of the night. The dry season had been cruel. No rains in months. Even the mango trees bore no fruit. In some homes, people had begun boiling leaves, hoping for miracles in bitter broth. When the tea was ready, his wife handed him a metal cup, its rim bent, stained from years of use. He sipped slowly. It was bitter, but it warmed him. "Thank you," he said. "I'll be off soon. I want to reach the market before the sun burns too hot." She nodded. He stood, adjusted the old coat, and picked up the rope. Through the small doorway, the cow looked at him with tired eyes. She did not know where they were going, and maybe that was better. But as Kikola stepped out into the night, a strange feeling rose in his gut. Something about this day, this walk, felt different, heavy. The road to Kamweli Market was still wrapped in darkness, just beginning to stretch its limbs into dawn. Kikola Lambu's breath puffed out in small clouds as he walked, his thin coat doing little to fight the biting cold. The earth beneath his bare feet was damp with morning dew. Small watery shrubs brushed against his trouser legs, soaking them up to the knees. Each step felt colder than the last, and soon it was like he'd waded through a river in his sleep. "I should have worn that old sack," he muttered to himself, shaking a shivering leg like it had betrayed him. The cow behind him snorted, unimpressed. It was a quiet morning, the kind where thoughts tried to speak louder than the wind. From far off, birds chirped warnings to each other. Some sounded like complaints, others like gossip. Above, an owl hooted once. Then again, as if judging him for being out so early. "You've eaten your rat. I haven't had my githeri," he grumbled at the bird. "So don't act wise, Mr." The owl stayed silent. Kikola trudged forward, careful with the cow's rope. She moved slowly, with the grace of something that had nothing left to lose. Her bones poked through her hide like forgotten nails in a torn chair, but she walked, loyal, trusting. He patted her gently. "Just a little further, my daughter. Today, we find you a buyer. Tomorrow, we eat." Eventually, he began to see shapes in the mist, other early risers on their way to Kamweli. Some walked alone. Others were in quiet pairs. The road felt less like a punishment and more like a procession now. "Kikola!" a voice called. He squinted. A short man with a bent back carrying oversized sack balanced came limping toward him. "Ah, Kivindu!" Kikola answered with a smile. "Still carrying that thing like it's your ungrateful mother-in-law." Kivindu laughed, then coughed violently. "Eesh! This bag is heavier than marriage itself." They shared a brief chuckle before moving along. That was the way in Ukambani. Laughter, even in misery. The joke didn't cook food, but it made the hunger sit more quietly. Further down, more walkers joined the path. Familiar faces from nearby villages. He greeted the ones he recognized with a nod or a wave. The ones he didn't, he watched carefully. Kikola never trusted people easily, not because he hated them. On the contrary, he loved everyone, but experience had taught him that sometimes the smile on a man's face didn't match the hunger in his heart. People were evil, kind, and confused. Just past the old baobab tree, where herders usually stopped to let their goats munch on thorny leaves, Kikola noticed a figure walking toward him. The man was tall, polished, and glowing like a misplaced city light. He wore a white suit, white from head to foot, as if he were attending a wedding, not walking on a dry earth before sunrise. Kikola glanced up once, curious. The man's coat shimmered faintly, and his scent arrived before he did, some mixture of expensive perfume and arrogance. Their eyes met for a second. Then Kikola looked down. He suddenly felt the cold more deeply, his own coat heavier with shame. He tugged at the rope nervously, keeping the cow closer to him. His eyes darted to the trees, to the bushes. He didn't like the look of that suit. It screamed money. And where there was money, sometimes came trouble. Could he be a cattle thief? The thought chilled him more than the morning air. Or worse, one of those men who buy cows cheaply only to resell at 10 times the price. He didn't want to find out. He muttered under his breath, "Let this man pass without a story. Let him be on his way." The man didn't stop, just walked by with a small nod, more polite than expected. But Kikola didn't respond. He kept his eyes on the path and his fingers tight on the rope. He hated being suspicious. But hunger makes men careful, and desperation sharpens the senses. Behind him, the cow mooed softly, as if sensing his worry. He reached back and scratched her ear. "No one will take you, my daughter, not today. You're all we've got left." He pressed on, walking faster now. The sky was starting to lighten. A faint orange streak spread above the hills, and the market was still a good hour away. He didn't want to be late. Early birds got better deals. Late ones got lies. As Kikola pressed on, the path stretched wider, winding through the cracked heart of the village. He glanced around, and the truth of the land sank deeper into him. The shambas on either side of the road looked dead. Not just dry. Dead. The earth was the color of old rust, with deep lines running through it like broken skin. No green, not a single healthy shoot in sight. The shrubs were gray and brittle, standing like forgotten skeletons. The soil was so hard, even the wind didn't bother moving it anymore. Things were hard. It hadn't rained properly in almost 10 years. Not even a decent drizzle. The clouds had forgotten the region. Maybe they'd packed up and moved to Nairobi, just like the young men from the villages. People were suffering, worse than ever. Children had swollen bellies and blank eyes. Women walked miles just to fetch dirty water. Old men, like Kikola, they just kept going because stopping felt worse than dying. The government? The government was another cloud that had forgotten them, always full of speeches, empty promises, and useless sacks of yellow maize that came months too late, if they came at all. Once, things had been different. Kikola could still remember the laughter, the harvest seasons. "Maize so tall you could hide your mother-in-law inside," he said out loud, a sad smile flickering across his face. Beans, cassava, sweet potatoes, mangoes that dropped like nonsense. The villages used to sing during harvest. Children ran with roasted maize, and neighbors borrowed salt, but not sorrow. Even goats looked plump. Those days, the earth was alive. Now there was nothing but dust and cries. The sky above was opening now, the first light of dawn spreading like melted gold on the horizon. The sun had climbed up slowly, careful not to make too much noise, like even it was tired of looking at this land. Kikola's cow walked behind him, hooves dragging through the dust until she suddenly stopped. "Eh?" He turned. "Kelu, move! We're not there yet." But she stood still. Her nose sniffed at the ground, her eyes sad and sunken. She took a step, then another, then nothing. She stared at the dead grass, chewed a dry twig, and then did what no man wants to see his cow do. She sat right there on the side of the road. "No, not now," Kikola whispered, kneeling beside her. "We must move. The market is close." He touched her neck, patted her softly, even tried to tug the rope, but the cow wouldn't budge. Her belly rumbled with emptiness. There was nothing left to chew, nothing to keep her going. Kikola looked around. The grass was brown and sharp. The soil cracked into angry shapes. Shrubs had collapsed in their own thirst. Everything looked like it had given up. He sat beside her slowly and let the silence wrap around him. More footsteps approached. The road was coming alive now. Men with baskets, women with chickens tied by the legs, others carrying nothing but hope. Many passed by without a word. A few stopped. "Hey, Kikola, what's the matter?" one asked. "She's weak," he said, pointing to the cow. "Can't move. No food." "Ah." The man clicked his tongue and walked off. Another woman paused. "Maybe she's cursed," she whispered. "Ah, don't think so. Just hungry," Kikola replied, annoyed. People kept passing by, asking, guessing, leaving. Then an old man with a walking stick and a long white beard shuffled close. He wore a faded coat and carried a calabash. He squatted beside Kikola without asking, studied the cow, then nodded to himself like he'd seen this before. "She needs salt," he said. Kikola turned to him. "Salt?" "Yes, there's a river just over that ridge." He pointed with his chin. "It's dry now, but its walls hold salty clay. Go scrape some, feed her. Might help." "You think it'll work?" "It helped mine last week. She was worse than this one. Now she runs like a gazelle." Kikola didn't ask questions. When hope knocks, you don't argue. You open the door. He stood quickly, tied the cow to a nearby stump, and hurried toward the river. It wasn't far, just past a cluster of dead thorn trees. The riverbed was dry, all right, dry as an old preacher's throat, but its walls shimmered with white patches. He dug with his hands, scraping the salty clay into a small sack he found tucked in his coat pocket. His fingers were sore, nails filled with grit, but he didn't stop. When he returned, the cow was lying still, head low. "Come now, Kailu," he whispered, crouching beside her. "Try this." He pushed the salty clay toward her mouth. She sniffed once, twice, then slowly began to lick, then again, and again. Kikola held his breath. A minute passed, another. The cow stood. She wobbled, shook her head, then took a step, then another. Kikola laughed, a deep, surprised, tearful laugh that sounded too loud for the morning. The old man was gone. No trace, but the cow was moving again. And so they walked on, toward Kamweli, not fast, not strong, but moving. And sometimes that's all that matters. The sun had now lifted higher, spreading warm light over the parched land like a dusty bedsheet. Kikola Lambu and his cow shuffled along the winding road toward Kamweli Market. The cow walked slow but steady, her strength slowly returning from the salty clay. Lambu's back ached, his feet hurt, but he was moving. That was victory enough. Then about 2 or 3 kilometers later, just as the road bent slightly near a lone acacia tree, something caught his eye. He stopped. Right there, on the edge of the road, was a pot. Not just any pot. A shiny, wide-mouthed sufuria, clean and untouched. Beside it, a bundle of money, neatly tied with a sisal string. Lambu blinked. Once, twice, 3 times. The cow mooed softly behind him. Lambu whispered, slowly stepping forward. "Now what madness is this?" He squinted down at the pot. Inside was a full meal. White rice, steaming softly in the morning sun, and on top, golden brown chicken, oily and crispy and tender-looking, the legs sticking out like they were dancing. A small cloud of steam rose from the pot. The smell drifted up into Lambu's nose and hit him straight in the soul. His stomach immediately began to rumble, not just with hunger, but with excitement. He clutched his belly. Even my intestines are clapping." But then he froze, because he remembered the rumors. Everyone in the village had heard them, the old women at the markets, the young boys in schools, the drunkards at the chang'aa dens. Stories whispered over the years like dry winds in the area. Jinns. It was said that rich people who used dark powers, people who had made secret deals for wealth and power, sometimes get tired of their jinns, and when they do, they usually dump them on roadsides. In pots, disguised as food, money, anything to fool a poor soul. If you touched the offerings, if you ate the food, you died instantly. Some said your belly would burst. Others said your tongue would swell until it choked you. Others claimed you'd run mad, wandering naked across the whole world. Lambu stood still as a termite post. His hunger was now fighting with fear in his chest. "Now what?" he whispered, scratching his gray beard. "Here is money. Here is food. I'm hungry, poor. Jinn can kill you. Now what?" He shook his head and stepped back. But then he hesitated. Because truly, what were jinns? He'd never seen one. Not in all his 50-something years. He'd seen drunk men pretend to be possessed. He'd seen goats fall and shake like they were demons. But actual jinns? No, not. Only rumors. "Ah, just village talk," he said to himself, trying to sound confident. Still, he stood at a safe distance and peered at the food like it might suddenly grow teeth. The rice looked perfect, white and fluffy with small green pepper bits. The chicken had crispy skin glistening in the light. You could tell it had been cooked with proper spices, not like the boiled nonsense he was used to back in the village. His stomach groaned louder. "Aye," he said, taking a step closer. 10 years, I haven't even smelled rice, leave alone chicken." He bent forward slightly, hands on his knees, just close enough to inhale the full scent. His eyes closed. The world went quiet. "Not today, devil," he said suddenly, stepping back and crossing himself quickly. Just then, his cow let out a loud moo, snapping her rope back and forth as if something had bitten her tail. He jumped, almost fell. Even the cow knows this is cursed," he muttered, quickly moving to calm her. He patted her head gently and spoke in low tones until she quieted. He turned back to the pot and the money. His eyes landed on the cash. A small bundle, shinning and firm, like it had been dropped intentionally. His fingers itched. He looked left, then right, nobody in sight. Cautiously he bent down and picked it up. The paper felt real. Crisp. He untied the string, holding his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. He counted in whispers. 17,000, 18,000, 20,000 Kenyan shillings. His jaw dropped. "Hiya!" His heart thumped in his chest. He looked around again. Still no one, no demon, no shadow. Just him, the cow, and the road. "Me?" he whispered, laughing nervously. "I am not leaving this. Never." He stuffed the bundle deep into his coat pocket. Suddenly, the morning didn't feel so cold anymore. His knees felt strong. His back stood straighter.